Okay, so yeah, it is set equal to 0, so we're good. So now we can move on by identifying our A, B, and C. Okay, remember we need those pieces to plug into the quadratic formula. Our A in this case is 2. Our B is right next to the x, which is 8, and then negative 120. Okay. Now all we have to do from here is take this information and plug it in or substitute it in for each letter of the quadratic formula. Okay, so I've already started it. I got negative 8, so I just plugged 8 into B, plus or minus the square root of, once again, our B, which is 8 squared, minus 4, our A is 2, our C is negative 120. Let me squeeze that in there. Okay? All over 2 times your A value, which is 2. Okay? What did I always say to do? Let's clean up before we type it into our calculator. I think it just makes more sense to clean it up because sometimes we have calculator error. You know, us users accidentally type in something wrong. So let's lessen the chance for us to do something wrong. So I like to clean up the outside, inside, and the bottom. Okay? So that's just going to become negative 8 plus or minus the square root. Did we touch the square root yet? No. Now, what can we do with the inside? This is our discriminant, I mean. What can we do in here? Oh, that's right. We can just plug it right into our calculator, okay? So I have my calculator. I'm going to plug that straight into my calculator. So I have 8 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 120. All right, and I get 1,024. See that? Okay. Where is that going to go? Well, that's going to go inside our square root. Divided by, 2 times 2 is 4. All right, now can we plug this into our calculator? Sure. How many times do we have to do this? Remember, we have plus and minus, so we have to do it twice. I like to do the top, so let's do our plus first. What must we do at the top? What do you have to tell the calculator to do? Do the top first, then divide. So I'm going to put parentheses around my top. But what else do I have to put here to close this? That's right, I got to put another parentheses. Okay, got my calculator again. Let's move that off to the side so you can see it. Okay. Open parentheses, negative 8 plus, remember doing plus first, the square root of 1024, close the square root, close the top, double parentheses there, divided by 4. Okay, so I get x to equal 6, comma, how many other solutions should we have? We should have one more. Okay, let's go ahead and do the minus. Open parentheses, negative 8, now minus the square root of 1024, close the square root, and close the top, divided by 4. Is negative 10. Okay, if you get these type of numbers, I wanted to talk about this for a second. If you get whole numbers like this, guess what? We probably could have factored this, but what did I say earlier? You don't need a factor. If you're not good at factoring, you can always use the quadratic formula. Okay, so there's our 2 answers. Okay, all right, let's move on to another example. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead. I think you're getting the idea. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead to this number 4. What do you see that's a little bit different from everything else? Okay, what do we always have to check? You got it. This has to be equal to 0. Is this equal to 0 right now? No, we have this 10. Let's get rid of the 10 and move it to the other side. To do that, we're going to have to subtract. Okay, am I going to subtract 10 to these 2 terms? No, because they have x's. Line it up to what you're going to actually get rid of. So that cancels out. We're going to be left with 10x squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 0. Now, it's set equal to 0. We can now identify our A, B, and our C. Okay, so what is our A value in this example? It's 10. It's right next to the x squared. What is our B? It's right next to the x, which is 5. And what is our C? Okay, in this example, it's negative 6 because it had a change when we moved over the negative 10. Okay, so we have all of our pieces. It's set to 0. What must we do now? You got it. Substitute our letters into our quadratic formula. Okay? Negative always goes there. Remember, the opposite of b, which is 5, plus or minus the square root of 5 squared. I like to put parentheses around it. Get in that habit. Minus 4. Our a is 10. And c is negative 6. Okay? All divided by 2 times your a, which is 10. Easy enough, right? Okay, what did I say to always do to lessen the error that we may get? Let's clean it up, okay? Outside, inside, bottom. Outside, inside, and bottom. Let's clean those pieces up. Okay, negative times 5 is just going to be a negative 5, plus or minus the square root. Okay, let's type in our what's inside the radical into our calculator. Once again, 5 squared minus 4 times 10 times negative 6 gives us 265. Okay, so that's taken care of. And then 2 times 10 is 20. You got it. Okay, what must you tell the calculator? I know this is becoming redundant, but I think you guys need to know this. What must we do first before we divide? Clean the top up. So tell the calculator, hey, take care of this first by using parentheses. Okay? All right, so let's type this all into our calculator. So we have negative 5. Oops, let me move this around here. We have negative 5. Which one do you want to do first? Plus or minus? Plus it is. Okay, plus the square root of 265. Close your parentheses for the square root. Close off the top. Oops, look what I forgot to do. Open parentheses, negative 5. He'd probably be yelling at me right now. Okay, that looks much better. Okay, we have the double parentheses at the end, and we're closing off the top, divided by 20. Okay? So x is going to equal, hey, we got a decimal this time. Some teachers are picky. I'm not going to be that picky. I would suggest just the first 2 decimal places after the decimal. So I'm going to do 0.56. I'm not going to round because it's a 3 right next to the 6. So 0.56. So that's one of our values. Okay? Let's clear that up. Let's do the minus now. Open parentheses, negative 5 minus the square root of 265. Close parentheses, divided by 20. Okay, I get a negative 1.06. Once again, 2 places after the decimal. I don't need to round because there's a 3 next to the 6. Okay? So we finally ran into some decimals, so that's okay. Totally fine. That's your final answer. Okay? All right. Before I move on to the next and last example, does it matter which one we do first? No. I mean, we could have subtracted first. That's fine. Another thing that you guys might be sitting there going, hey, couldn't we take the square root of 265 first before you even plugged it into the calculator with all the other stuff? Sure. But then you would run into some decimals, and that's hard to type into the calculator. Okay, so that's why I like to type this all into the calculator at this point, okay? Whatever you feel is more comfortable for you, you go right ahead and do. You know, I'm not going to stop you. Okay, let's do the last and final example. Once again, what's wrong with this situation? I can tell you right now, yeah, it's not set equal to 0, so what must we do? That's right, we got to get rid of it by subtracting 8 from both sides. I line it up with the constant, so we get n squared plus 9 plus 20 equals 0, because 28 minus 8 is 20. Okay? All right, now we can identify our A, B, and C. A is going to be 1, B is 9, and C is 20. Okay? All right, let's start plugging into the quadratic formula. So opposite of B, so it's going to be negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 9 squared minus 4 times 1 times 20, all over 2 times 1. Okay? All we did was substitute in. Let's clean up. Outside, inside bottom. Okay, so that's going to become -9 plus or minus the square root. Okay, let's go ahead and type this into our calculator. All right, so we're going to type in 9 squared minus 4 times 1 times 20. Okay, and we're going to get 1, so that's kind of nice. So the square root of 1. All right, 2 times 1 is 2, so everything's cleaned up. It's a really big radical bar, sorry about that. Okay, tell the calculator what to do first. That's right, do the top first, then divide. So type it in our calculator, here we go. Open parentheses, -9 plus the square root of 1, close parentheses twice, divided by 2, we get -4. And last but not least, let's put the minus in. -9 minus the square root of 1, double parentheses there. Remember, we got to close the radical and close the top. Divided by 2, you get -5. Once again, could we probably, I can tell you right now we can. Could we factor in this case? Absolutely, because we came out with 2 whole numbers. That one could have been factored, but that's okay. If you're still not comfortable with factoring, you can always use the quadratic formula, okay? All right, in the next video, you are going to try some of these. Keep in mind to set it equal to 0. Okay, identify your A, B, and C. Substitute those into the quadratic formula. Remember, it is this. If you need to write it down, do that. And then all you got to do is simplify the formula, and then you get your answers.